Hey everyone, and welcome into FCC Talk. I'm your host, Jon Rhoades, Children and Family Minister here at First Christian Church, and joined with me today is our WeeKidz Director, Shaylee Stantz. Shaylee, how you doing today?
I'm good, John. How are you?
I'm doing well. Had you on once before? Once? Twice?
Twice. Yeah, this
Twice?
is number
Okay.
3, I think.
All right, so Shaylee is here today with Chris is out of the office for who knows what reason. We always joke that when he's not preaching, he runs around a little bit more and does his thing. So I'm preaching this Sunday, and Diana's on vacation, and CJ's been in and out doing some different things. So
Yeah.
we decided to have Shaylee on today, and I think that was a good choice for the topics that we have. So we just want to remind you that FCC Talk is a podcast where we talk about Christian news. We do stray away from politics. We figure you can find that just about anywhere. So you don't need to come here and hear our political opinions, but we just try to keep you up to date with a few different Christian news stories that happen during the week, give our opinions on them. It's definitely not a sermon. We're definitely not, making it seem like everything we say is, everything you have to follow. We might mention scripture here and there, but at the end of the day, it's just good, wholesome conversation about Christian news, us sharing our opinions, and hopefully being able to speak something into your life that is positive and uplifting and better to listen to than some of the other stuff out there.
Yes, for sure.
So, all right, well, let's get to the first topic here, Shaylee. Our very first topic is Carrie Underwood. Carrie Underwood went to a church, let's see, it was 2 weekends ago. I believe it was in the middle of August with it. Yeah. So the 11th, I think it was. She went to a church and surprisingly led worship at the church. People weren't Rolling Hills Community Church. I was just looking for the name. Rolling Hills Community Church. People weren't aware that Carrie Underwood was going to be there. She kind of just popped out on stage. And so then, obviously Instagram blew up and all the social
Oh,
media
yeah.
was like, oh my goodness, Carrie Underwood is here. So she was singing, oh, what's the song? Did I miss the song?
Well, what did that say?
I think it's a Bethel song.
Yes,
It
I
is a
think you're
Bethel
right.
song. I'll find it.
Goodness of God.
Okay, Goodness of God. That's
Goodness
right.
of God, yeah.
I'm not aware of that song personally. I don't listen to Bethel all that much. It's not that
I love that song.
yeah, it's not that I think
Yes.
it's like a terrible song or anything. I just don't listen to Bethel all that much.
Yeah, I mean, the controversy with Bethel, I get
Yeah.
like it, but, it's an amazing song. It's one of my favorite worship songs. It's actually a really popular song on a lot of, like, Christian talk, like TikTok. There's a lot of Christian influencers that use that. But I would have absolutely lost my mind if I were sitting at church and all of a sudden Carrie Underwood pops up on stage. Like, oh, yes, please.
And that's kind of the direction I wanted to take this conversation. Like, obviously, Carrie Underwood, a Grammy star, wanting to go,
Mhm.
sing worship music at a church is fantastic, and that's great. However, we also talk a lot about like, do we want the stage to become a place of performance, and become a place of where we worship the people on it rather than who we're trying to sing to? So I'm not trying to say anybody who's doing anything here, but I do want to have just an honest conversation of like, just generally, Shaylee, what are your thoughts about a church surprising their congregation? They didn't plan this. They didn't make this out to be a concert or anything like that. Like, I mean, they did plan it, but they didn't
Right.
advertise this as like a big thing. They surprised their congregation with Carrie Underwood leading worship. What's your general thoughts on that?
I mean, since her days on American Idol, she's been very forward that she is big in faith. And I don't know Carrie Underwood. I don't know how well she practices, her faith, and I don't know what her walk with God is like, but she clearly has a talent. Her voice is amazing. She did a whole album that was gospel songs, singing them at the Ryman, and it's beautiful. Um, but I think I think kudos to them for not announcing it and surprising people so that it was a genuine, just she stepped on stage and her congregation, the congregation of that church was just surprised with her there, because I think if they would have announced it, it would have been a media circus and it would have been the wrong, um, kind of the I don't know, wrong isn't necessarily the word, but I think it just would not have gone the way it needed to. It wouldn't have been as genuine and wholesome as it turned out to be, because I mean, I think she has a great voice, a great talent. She's done some things that I've been like, Carrie, like, are you following God as closely as you need to? But I think that in all the times that, I mean, let me back up a little bit. You can tell when an artist has sold their soul, like, in my opinion. And I feel like, not knowing her, but just kind of observing through the years, like, I feel like she's might have towed the line and wanted the fame, but let God lead her that way instead of selling her soul, if that makes sense whatsoever. So I think them just letting her be there, because I'm sure she was just there in the area, and maybe that's a church that she knew about or grew up around. Who knows the whole story? But I think them not announcing it, just letting her come up on stage, and then her leading worship, like, I was, like, teary-eyed watching the clip because her voice is just astounding. So I think it's cool, and I'm sure she inspired someone to use their voice for an instrument of God, so I love it. Like, I think it's amazing. But
Yeah, and I mean, sometimes during worship, it can get a little mundane sometimes, right? You're
yeah.
just kind of going through the motions of it, which it
Mhm.
definitely shouldn't be that way. I'm not saying that,
Right.
we should ever have it be that way, but I think if we're all being honest, we've all been in a worship service before where maybe, you're just kind of singing along and maybe you're not
Mhm.
really into it. I mean, imagine if you're you're in that situation and then it's like, bam, Carrie Underwood. Like, wow.
Yes.
There she is. It does kinda remind me just, like, overall, like, what our, you know, overall attitude of being in worship of God should be like, and it is
Mhm.
kinda eye-opening to me of, like, you can be in that situation where it's mundane and maybe you're not thinking about it a whole lot, but then a celebrity shows up and you're like, "Wow, that's crazy."
Yeah.
When in reality, you were in the presence of God,
Right.
worshiping before, so it's
Yeah.
like, were you really valuing that presence? And we had a really good discussion the other day in staff meeting about, the presence of God, and do people truly value that the way
Mhm.
they once did? Because we can freak out about being in the presence of some celebrity because, well, what sparked the conversation was I was going to Big Ten Media Days for football this year. If you don't know, I do a football podcast on the side, and so
Mhm.
that's grown more than I thought it would. And so I've made some connections, and I got to go to Big Ten Media Days, which is where
Oh, awesome.
pretty much, yeah, it was really, really fun. Pretty much the coaches and the players from the football teams go, and you get to ask the coaches and the players questions. And so I actually got to sit, like, I don't know, maybe 10 feet away from the Ohio State head coach, which was really cool for me,
Yeah, that's
Ohio
cool.
State fan. And so that was really, really cool. But as we were talking about, like, me having that experience and being like, man, I never would have thought I'd be in the same room as, like, the head coach of Ohio State and some of that stuff. It's like,
Mhm.
you know, but it really is not all that crazy because I'm literally in a room worshiping with God, worshiping God with him there every
Yeah.
single Sunday. So, like,
Mhm.
the power of presence. It's kind of astounding when you really take a moment, take a step back and look at the whole situation. And I agree with you, Shaylee. I'm glad they didn't turn this into some kind of media circus. And this wasn't even like an article where the news was there. Like, they're just literally referencing social media clips of people who took their phone
Yeah.
out and recorded, or the church's live stream where they have
Mhm.
the words at the bottom and it's on Instagram. So, like, I mean,
Right.
if you're gonna do this, it
Yeah.
seems like this is the best way to do it in my mind.
I, I mean, I think it's cool how you can experience the presence of God in different ways. Like, I mean, coming to church on Sunday morning, sometimes it is just going through the motions. But when the Newsboys were in Terre Haute at the Mill, and I took Brinley to that concert, and I loved it because it was just Sunday night worship. Like, it was the Newsboys, and it was a concert, and it was fun. But they brought the lights down, and the sun was setting, and they said, "Can you guys just worship with us? Like, we're here." when two or more people are gathered in his name, he's here, he's present, we can feel him, and let's just worship God in this moment and just lift our voices to him. And I mean, we just sang praise and worship, and it wasn't even Newsboys songs, it was other people's songs that they played, and it was amazing to just in that moment be out in the middle of a cornfield in Indiana and worship, and you're not worshiping, you're worshiping with everybody in the community, but Newsboys, who's another group that's used their voice for God for all these years, was leading worship. Like it was cool. So I mean, I would think just having Carrie Underwood lead a worship song is just, I mean, it's just as powerful and sometimes sparks that worship. It'd be cool to just worship alongside her, I guess, would be what that would be like. You see this person, she's a celebrity, but in that moment, she's there with you at your church, singing next to you and worshiping God. Like that's so cool to me. And I mean, she's huge. She's a huge star, and she took a moment to humble herself again and give herself in the presence of God. It's just cool. I would have been crying and like trying to meet her, of course, but
While
like,
also putting her on Instagram.
right. Hey, can I have that motorcycle that Miranda Lambert gave you that you don't drive? Like, can I have it? I think that would have been me. Like, my husband would really like that motorcycle that Miranda Lambert got you. Also, can I meet Miranda Lambert? Like, I just want to color pictures with her.
Need some connections now.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, totally. I think that even like the best part of this is that I do believe that, at least from what I saw, Carrie Underwood was not trying to make this about herself. She was
Mhm.
trying to keep the focus on God the entire time.
Yeah.
And I think that's the key. If you're ever going to bring a star or like a celebrity or something like that,
Mhm.
whether it be to your church or to some kind of religious event, it has to be somebody who is willing to say, like, you can't control other people, but they're willing to say, like, hey, this is going to be about God. This isn't going to be
Right.
about me. I just want to be there. Yes, maybe my presence will excite some people, but at the end
Mhm.
of the day, like, this is about God. And it really seemed like that was the direction that Carrie
Yeah.
Underwood took it. And so, I think that sometimes when we read stuff like this, we can be like, oh, this church is just trying to put on a
Mhm.
show and put on a performance. Well, maybe. I'm not going to say,
Maybe.
definitely not. But at least the way it seemed to be going about it with the surprise and the way Carrie presented
Mhm.
herself and everything, like it seemed like to me, it was just a really cool event for the church that everybody could get excited about. And
Yeah.
they did their absolute best to still keep the focus on God. So,
Yeah, for sure. I thought it's awesome.
yeah, me too. All right, let's go to the next one here. Shaylee, Tim Tebow. You know Tim Tebow,
I
right?
do. Of football, I do know at least of Tim Tebow.
Yes. Well, Tim Tebow also played baseball. Didn't have as long of
Oh.
a baseball career, but he did play
No, kinda
baseball.
like Michael Jordan, like, tried it out
Uh,
and
yeah, he tried to do the Michael Jordan. He tried to do the oh, what's the Deion Sanders?
Oh, yeah, I forgot the Sanders. Yeah.
Yeah, it
Mhm.
didn't really work. Oh, Deion Sanders is in college football now. He's
Mm.
on my he's talked about it on
Ooh.
my college football podcast. But
Ooh.
But Tim Tebow, he has been battling spiritual warfare in the fight against human trafficking. Now, if you don't know, Tim Tebow, he comes from the University of Florida, was a Heisman Trophy winner there, won national championships, went to the NFL, won a playoff game. Didn't have the longest career ever, but he was in the NFL, and then he went over to play baseball, like we said. And then now, ever since he's out of sports, he has started a group, a foundation that advocates for victims of human trafficking and child exploitation, as well as other vulnerable people in need of the gospel. So it is Christian based. I love somebody. I love an organization like this that somebody is willing to start. I don't think that there are enough ministries out there that are really battling against human trafficking and child exploitation, and also
Mhm.
doing it with the Christian keeping Christ at the center of it all.
Right.
So I think that's fantastic. Well, in an interview, Tebow, he was the son of missionaries. He quoted John 16:33 as one of the Bible verses that help him and his team stand against spiritual warfare, which, if you're not aware of John 16:33, it says, I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart. I have overcome the world. The words of Jesus there. And so he's talking about spiritual warfare and how much, that's trying to take him down, take his foundation down. Shaylee, just overall, what's your reaction to Tebow's story and he and his team trying to overcome the spiritual warfare and what they're trying to do with their foundation?
I love when somebody with his platform genuinely works for God. He's another one that has always been very, I'm a Christian and this is how it is, and I'm not backing down. And, I'm going to pray every time I get in the end zone. Like, I'm going to put John 3:16 on my faith. He's never backed down from his faith. He's never backed down that he's a man of God. And now he's using his fame as who he is and what he got famous for to actively help, not just anything, but something that we all know are aware of. I would hope that his that celebrities and anybody in power or famous are a part of the problem, and he's going against them. So it's like spiritual warfare, but also like, risking the fact that he might expose a lot of people that have a lot of power. Um, which the whole Sound of Freedom movie, which I still have yet to watch, even though I want to watch, um, I think that people have buried their head in the sand when it comes to human trafficking. But I have said for years and years that since the beginning of time, humans have been used for currency. And it's just progressively just gotten worse, but it's more disgusting than it ever used to be. It used to be just slaves and now it's worse. Um, but I think if there's somebody like him that's actively using their platform, using their funds and resources, because he's got way more funds and resources than I could have, and is actively trying to help people and help them be safe and help them be, taken out of that life and saved from that situation. Like, I think it's absolutely amazing. And that Christ is in the center of all of it is even better. Like, it's hard work. I can't imagine the emotional turmoil that him and his team go through in this industry that they have stepped into. But I mean, until Jesus sounds the trumpet, like, we need people like that can rescue these people from being used as currency, because that's what it is. I mean, and it's one of the biggest forms of currency that's around the world. Sadly, it's
Yeah,
disgusting.
it is disgusting. I don't think it's really our place to go into all the details necessarily in this podcast, just because I think there are so many people that do really good work to combat it, that do
Mhm.
tell the stories and
Yes.
do a very good job of helping people understand just what the problems are.
Right.
That I don't want to make it sound any less bad than it actually is, because
Right.
by me
Yeah.
not telling you about human trafficking here, I'm not like trying to hide it.
Right. Look it
I
up.
feel like there are so many other people out there that are telling stories well, that I'm
Mhm.
telling you, like, if you want to learn more about this, which you should because it's a huge, huge problem and something that needs to
Yes.
be solved, please go seek out information on it, because it
There's
is, like I said, huge.
there's an organization in Vigo County. I cannot think of the name of it right now, but
I think there is one in Vigo
there
County.
is one in Vigo County that's very active. So
Right.
yeah, just reach out to anyone to
And I think
kind
a
of
lot of people,
discover more
they
about it.
think yeah, I think a lot of people, they think of human trafficking as like, "Oh, that happens in India or that happens in Africa or, these foreign countries." And it's like, yeah, it does happen there, but it also happens much more locally, than you would ever realize, and it happens much
Um,
more
yeah.
in America that people realize. I mean, America is one of the if I know years ago it was the leading place where abductions happen for human trafficking. I don't know if it's still that way anymore. I haven't checked the statistics, but I do know that the Super Bowl is one of the biggest human trafficking events every single year. I mean, that's
In any state that it's hosted, yeah.
yeah.
So I have a human trafficking story for the audience, you and the audience. Kevin and I took Brinley to the Indiana State Fair in Indianapolis. in August of, I don't even know what year. Brinley was 2, so it's been 7 years ago. She was in her stroller, strapped in. We had just came out of, like, the cow barn, I think, and we're walking down one of the main, like, roads in the state fair. Saw a mom with a small child talking to a state cop, and a trafficker walked between the mom and the state cop and grabbed the child. Thankfully, the state cop was very aware of what was happening and very reactive and basically grabbed the guy by the collar and threw him on the ground and got the child back. But the fact that we didn't walk out that day was kind of shocking. But we continued our day, and we have never been back to the state fair ever again. We don't care. Brinley is big in 4-H and decides to, and she gets something where she's at the fair, she's going to be like strapped to us, because we could not believe that that was what we had just witnessed. And thank God that the cop was aware of what just happened, because, you know, I could not imagine what was going through that mom's head in that moment. And, but I mean, it's that local. It's that local that you don't, yeah, you think that it happens anywhere, but no, it's here. It's right here in our, I mean, it's so close. It's in our community that there's a group in Vigo County, like I just said, like it's it's here. And then I like, Brinley has no idea that that day even happened. I mean, she was 2, but Kevin and I just went to Louisville, Kentucky, and we were at a big car show. And, there's some events that they're aware that that's what happens, and there's other events that, like, it's really not gonna happen. It just kinda depends on, like, the crowd, I guess. But we were in Louisville, and Brinley kept letting go of our hand, and I finally said, "Brinley, do you want someone to, like, take you? Am I gonna have to traumatize you so you understand why you have to hold on to my hand?" And Kevin's like, "Traumatize her, like, just tell her." And so I leaned down in her ear and I kinda whispered to her, like, "There are people that are bad, and they will take you, and they will do horrible, horrible things to you." And I said more than that, but basically she got the point. Like, she understood that do not at any point, whether we're grocery shopping in Terre Haute, we're at a convention like this, like, if I tell you to hold my hand, hold onto my purse, hold onto your dad's chain on his wallet, or hold onto his hand, like, do not let go of us. Because if somebody tries to take you, like, they're gonna take you. And she, of course, is like, "Well, I know jujitsu." And I said, "Honey, I know you know jujitsu, and we put you in jujitsu for a reason. But if somebody wants to take you bad enough and do horrible things to you, they're gonna do it because they're bigger than you." I said, "I hope that in jujitsu you've learned to, like, get out of the situation as you can, and that's what we want you to learn while you're in jujitsu. But if somebody wants to do horrible things to you, they will." And that's all it took, was basically just, like, traumatizing her to a point that she was scared just enough to, like, "Okay, be aware of my surroundings and make sure I stick with my parents," because it can happen in an instant. And the fact that, like I said, Tim Tebow is using his platform and his resources and his money to form a group that's Christ-based to help prevent it, like, yes, please. Thank you, Tim Tebow.
Yeah, I mean, we need people like Tim Tebow and like what they do in Vigo County to combat this kind of stuff, because it happens far too often. And yeah, I mean, every time I'm with Lottie someplace, whether it's the zoo or whether it's Kroger,
Mhm.
keeping her as close as we can, because we want her to be there and be safe. So yeah, I mean, and that's the thing, is like, using humans as currency is one of the oldest, most evil things that can happen. But typically those things that are old and so evil, the devil obviously wants those things to continue. So
Oh, yeah.
Tebow and his team experiencing a lot of spiritual warfare, whether that's, mental health issues for themselves, or whether that's, dreams or whatever else they're seeing. We haven't been
Mhm.
told exactly what the spiritual warfare is that's going on, but I mean, that's always a scary thing if that's going on, but what you're doing is impactful if somebody's
Oh,
trying to
yeah.
stop you. So
Oh, yeah. Like, you're doing the right thing when you feel that tension, when you feel that fight, and the more you give to God, the more you feel that. You just feel it. Like, I mean, if anybody ever thinks that people that walk with God have an easy life, then they don't know what we're going through, like, at all. It's
Yeah.
the closer you get to doing something right for God, the harder Satan comes at you for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I had a student one time when I was at my old church. We were talking about how the devil will attack you when you follow God and things like that, and he was like, "Well, maybe I just shouldn't follow God, so that way the devil won't attack me." It's like, well,
No.
I could see how the math would work out there, but the issue is that you don't then have God to combat him in all the other areas where the devil tries to attack you. I
Right.
mean, there
Yeah.
there is a reason why people who don't have Christ try to supplement with anything they can get their hands on because they are
Mhm.
being attacked by Satan. So whether it's drugs or alcohol or addiction to whatever else it might be, people are trying to supplement for the attacks that's going on. When in reality, the only one that can actually satisfy you from what's trying to attack you is God.
Yep.
He's the only one that is ever going to be able to have you hold fast and be able to get through the warfare and the things like that are going
Oh,
on.
yeah. I will testify to that every single day. Like, I'm a standing testament of of that. Like, addiction to yeah, addiction
Just
and
addiction
just
in general. It doesn't even need to be to like any one thing. As I've
no.
gotten older, I've realized people can get addicted to almost anything.
Mhm.
And if it takes their like time and it takes their attention, that's
Yeah,
that's enough to get your
exactly.
mind off of what terrible things are going on.
Yep,
So,
for sure.
all right. Well, we have one more topic to discuss. This one's a little bit less heavy, so maybe won't be as difficult to discuss, but I do find it very interesting. We've talked a number of times on this show about new tech and stuff like that that's
Mhm.
going on out there. Well, some new tech has come up. Ask Kathy is an AI evangelism chatbot. Okay. Yes, I did say that right. Ask
Uh-huh.
Kathy was created by what's the church's name? Toronto United Church Council, and their goal is for Ask Kathy to be an AI, basically evangelist that leads people to Christ. People can ask the AI. I mean, you can literally look it up. I looked up Ask Kathy, and it was the very first thing that popped up in my Google search. So
Yeah.
you could literally go there and look it up if you want. But essentially, she answers questions about the Bible. She tells you about God and how you can be saved, and um, just all kinds of different stuff like that. And it was interesting because when they started making it, and I read another article that when they started making it, they just made it as kind of like a find me a Bible verse guide, right? Like,
Oh,
hey, I'm
yeah.
struggling with this, and it was like, here's some Bible verses that might help you out. But then as they kinda kept going on and on with it, they were like, "Well, what if whoops, well, what if we, had it lead people to God? Or what if we, had it talk to people about their problems and almost be like a therapist or whatever else?" And so it's just kinda grown and grown and grown to what it is now.
Mhm.
So Shaylee, I guess my question to you is, would you ever use Ask Kathy? Why or why not?
Um, I mean, considering the times that I've gone on my Bible app and just typed in like a keyword trying to find scripture of that keyword, I would say for that purpose, yes. But my back of my mind is like, did we not learn anything from the Terminator movies? Like, honestly, like, have we not learned anything from Terminator? Come on. Um, so I think for some things, like it just I don't know, like part of me is like, oh, it's just a Google search. And instead of scrolling through pages of answers, it's a chat bot that gives you the answers right there. But I think if it's somebody looking for connection, that makes me like sad. And I don't want that to be that. And I know in the article it said like nothing will replace Jesus, which I appreciated that. Um,
Right, but
but
I mean, it also says in the article what AI can't do is replicate the love of Jesus, which is which is great.
which is great.
Um, but that's also kind of what they're
But
trying to do. Like,
yeah, and you're
not trying to be
trying,
judgmental, but that's kind of what they're trying to do. They're trying to use a
right,
computer to lead people to God.
right. And I feel like there's too much technology when people are hardwired for people to people connection. Like, God designed us to take care of the earth, to take care of the animals, and take care of the people in it. So when you take out the people and now you have technology, you're losing that connection. Even if you draw closer to God by reading the Bible or being pointed to certain things, like, you have to have more than just the Bible. Like, you have to have connection with other people, and you have to share that with other people, and other people share that with you. And it's just, a computer will never take the place of human connection. And I sometimes want to hermit myself and not leave my house, but when I'm out and about and with people and connecting with people and talking to people, that's so much better. And I think COVID kind of showed people that, yeah, we can shut down and we can isolate, but mental health in isolation, you know, that was bad. Depression went up and anxiety went up. And so I think if it's used as a resource for education and trying to find, certain scriptures, or pointing you into, like, the beatitudes, or where can I find the fruit of the spirit, or what does love mean? And then it shows you 20 different verses that defines what God defines as love, then that's great. But if it's pointing people to God by disconnecting them with people, then
Yeah.
I don't think it'll be for the better.
Yeah, I mean, it does. I mean, like the sharing of Bible verses, I think is good because I'm like you, where I've gone onto the Bible app and been like, verses on faith or verses on,
Mhm.
baptism or something like that. So I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. The article does talk about though how Ask Kathy can create specific prayers for very specific
Mm-mm.
occasions.
No.
So, yeah, I mean, like, yeah, it can give you some words to pray, but like, it's not like
Yes.
the chat bot is praying for you. Like
Right.
it's
Like,
like,
I mean, it reminds me of, like, every once in a while we let Brinley take our Echo Dot into her room, and so she's talking to Alexa. And one time she told Alexa, "I love you." And Alexa was like, "Thank you." And it's like, "Oh, that's not, I don't want my kid to talk to an Echo Dot. Like, that's not connection." So that's like what kind of that's what makes me think of that. Like, I mean, if you're trying to generate a prayer because somebody asked you to pray and you're really nervous about talking to some in front of people and you kind of need the words to say, like, that makes sense. Like, that that's kind of cool. But then at the same time, like, prayer comes from your heart. Like, you're speaking out loud what God already knows is on your heart. You're just forming the words out loud, you know.
what does the Bible say about prayer?
Right.
What does the Bible say you should say when you pray? Stuff like that could be
Yeah, like,
helpful.
if
But
you're using it because you genuinely have questions about things and it's helping guide you to the scripture that's gonna answer that question, absolutely. Like, that would be great because I cannot for the life of me remember every single verse. Like, when I was a kid, I was in this church program on Wednesday nights, and that's all we did was memorize scripture. I can't recall any of that information. I've got too much stuff going on. So if I, "Hey, Kathy, what's the verse that God numbers the stars and calls them by name?" Because I can't remember what that is, and that pops that up. I says, "Thank you so much," but not a, "Hey, Kathy, can you pray for me?" or "How can I pray for this?" Like, that's just that's just odd. Like,
yeah, it's
and
like
that's that disconnectivity. I would rather be like, "Hey, John, how can I pray for you?" or "How can I pray for this?" And then, you're like, "Well, let's look at the Bible. Let's figure this out." Like, that's what people need, not an AI. But, like, AI for answering questions or guiding you to verses to answer questions, that's great. Or, "Hey, this church is in your area and this is, go ask this pastor and here's his name and here's his office hours. Like that makes sense. But the rest of it's just kind of, I don't
It
know.
did say
Hey.
that it did say that when they had it on their website at one point, they made it so that you could ask the bot on the website, like, what are the service times for this church?
Yeah.
How do I speak to a minister? What is the background of this church? Like, that'd be really cool for a church
That's
website. I
cool.
can tell you,
Yeah.
as somebody who runs the church website, it is really hard to try and predict where people will go for certain
Yes.
things. Like, I've had people before be like, I couldn't find your service times in the website. And I was like, well, I put it under visit. And they were
Right.
like, oh, well, why wouldn't you put it under about? And I was like, because I thought it
Well,
fit better under visit. And they were like,
right.
oh, I went to about. And it's like,
Yeah.
okay.
Like frequently asked questions, like have you ever been to a website's frequently asked question, but your question isn't on there and you're like, am I asking a stupid question?
Yeah. Like your question wasn't frequent enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, so no, I'm not totally against technology. I think that technology is a good thing to be used as a tool. A
Yes.
tool to kind of supplement and help. But even like if you're going to technology to be like, give me verses about, what I can do when I'm sad or something like that, like, yeah, it might be good to find one or two, but if you're sad and you're hurting, like I'd rather you go to a friend and tell them what's
Mhm.
going on and ask if they
Yeah.
know any verses that's helped them. Like,
Right.
you know what I'm saying? Like that would be much more impactful than Ask Kathy being like, "Here's Ephesians 2:10." Like
Right. You are God's masterpiece. You're not worthless. Like
yeah, exactly. So like that would be good, but I don't know. I guess it's just a preference in it all.
right.
But like I
Yeah.
said, Ask Kathy. You can literally search her on Google and she's right there. Kathy stands for something. I was trying to find it.
Oh yeah, it does. My computer went to sleep and won't wake up or I would look.
Oh, here we go. Kathy stands for Churchy Answers That Help You.
Churchy. That's weird.
Churchy Answers That Help You. So, um, I think that's all I had on Ask Kathy. You have any more thoughts on Ask Kathy before we get out of here?
No, not really. I mean, it's kind of silly to me. Yeah. No, that's just kind of
I
silly.
see good in it, but I
I
also
see good
see
in it.
how like people could take it and be like
Yeah.
take it too far. Which
And be like,
that's all I
"Kathy,
can
I'm
say.
feeling sad today. Kathy, yeah,
Yeah.
that's a little much for me."
I would hope everybody would have a close enough friend that they could go to if
Yeah.
they're ever feeling like that. If you don't, come to me. I'll talk to you.
Do what?
I said, if not, come to me. I'll talk to you.
That's right. Yeah.
So, all right. I think that's all we got for today. Shaylee, thanks so much for coming on. We appreciate it.
Yes,
You have
thank you for
anything?
having me.
Yeah, you have anything going on WeeKidz you want to tell everybody about?
Um, Not really. I mean, we're doing our lesson Journeys for Jesus, which this Sunday will be the last one. And then next month is Dreams Come True. So that is the story of like Joseph and his dreams and um yeah, just kind of getting him. There's a lot of dreams in the Bible. So yeah, we're getting ready to start that, but lately we've just been playing outside a lot because it's nice and helps them not be quite so stir crazy. Um, but I mean, other than our kids ministry stuff, I mean, we've got Operation Christmas Child that we're working on. Started that a little sooner,
September
which
is the personal items like clothing and
yes,
sandals and underwear and stuff like that.
yep. So we got to empty our bucket.
14.
Yeah. So yeah, our bucket's full. So I appreciate people that have brought stuff in. That's great. The Christmas market.
Put all that stuff.
Yeah, that's probably why we need to clean out our room with all of our VBS stuff. We'll just pile it in my office for now. It's fine. I just cleaned it. Why not make it a mess?
How it goes.
Then let's see, Christmas market is coming up that we, host for Cornerstone. I'm excited about that. I am pretty excited about that. Mrs. Dowers, principal at Cornerstone, gave me the task of finding a new book fair. So Scholastic has been kicked out of Cornerstone because of its agenda. Yeah.
They don't.
Yeah. So without getting political, But we did find one called I-55. It's more of a Christian-based book fair. And they have a standard that they have their books that they kind of vet, and it lines up with the principles of our church. So I was really excited about that. If it doesn't follow the Bible or God's character, then they don't allow it at their book fair, which I thought was very cool. So yeah, we're pretty excited about that because it'll be open to shop at the Christmas market. So
Sweet.
yeah, so I'm very excited about that. It was a lot of fun actually trying to research those and making some phone calls and finding out that there was actually several Christian book fairs. So I don't know if anybody that listens to us has a school or homeschools or is looking for that stuff, but there are Christian book fairs out there, and there's a few that service our area. So I am very, very excited about that.
You want Christian book fair information? Shaylee's got you covered.
That's right. It's on the event page. So
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Shaylee, and thank you to everybody who took the time to listen to this episode. We will be back next week. I think I'm gonna have Dan on. We'll see if he can. If not, we'll probably have Chris on. But Chris is kind of a rascal. It's a hard catch.
yeah, I'm always available too. It's all good.
He's like our fill-in if we can't get any of the other three. But we always appreciate having her on. So you might get Shaylee 2 weeks in a row. Who knows?
Hey, I'd be all right with that.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for coming on. Listening. We appreciate it. Have a good one.